Welcome back to another episode of the Three Man Weave College Basketball Podcast. I am Jim Root, your host today. I believe that's back-to-back weeks I'm hosting. Joined by Kai McHugh and Matt Cox. We let Matt off the hook this week because he's got some big travel that we were just discussing before we were recording. Matt, why don't you tell the good folks where you are headed, Mr. Moneybags?
Yeah, I'm a billionaire. That's the breaking news. I'm officially a billionaire. No, I'm going to a billionaire's wedding. It's my fiance's cousin. And so when you have $1 billion, Kai, you tend to have your weddings in cool places. So the Hamptons is where this one will be located. Yeah, I can't wait to look down upon you peasants from my ivory tower all weekend. Good.
Do you plan on getting him alone in a room and making him your really good friend, network with him in hopes that maybe someday he will give you a large sum of money?
Yes.
Fun three-man weave forever, all of this stuff.
Yeah, Monica's dad already cornered him and did that same 20-minute song and dance pony show last time we were together. I kind of stayed in the sidelines. Feel like I missed my opportunity. I'm just going to be more of a self-made guy, make my own $1 billion kind of the hard way. By the bootstraps, one bet at a time. We'll get there. We all will. So
I would go opposite direction. Don't try to befriend him. I would try to blackmail him. Try to make something bad happen.
Well, extortion.
Embarrassing.
I like this.
Yeah, extort that.
I like this.
Have your camera ready for something he really doesn't want out there. Try to find out, which politician he's buying off under the table. Right. Yeah, there we go, Matt.
Use your fiance, Matthew, to lure him into a compromising situation. She's in on this, by the way.
Yeah.
Take pictures, blackmail. Yes, this is a great plan.
That's what we're gonna do. That is how Three Man Weave succeeds forever.
That's how we got to where we are today.
Money we've been waiting for. That's right.
That's what we've done.
It's another episode here today, folks. We are talking NBA draft deadline. That was yesterday. That is why we are not recording on the traditional Wednesday. We pushed back to Thursday because yesterday was a big news day in the sport. I had a hard time keeping track. It was mayhem out there with all the names that are going in, staying in, coming back out. We're going to recap that. Go through the winners, the losers, the surprising decisions. That's the plan on this week's pod. But first, of course, a little intro by way of that. Shout out to Jay Pitty, Joe Paskov, the composer of our opening tunes. Subscribe to the pod on iTunes, SoundCloud, wherever you listen. Hit that subscribe button, download, leave a review if you so choose on Apple, which, Kai, we have none this week.
None. Not even an apology for the 4-star review we got last week, Jim. I'm hurt. Sometimes it takes a while. It's delayed, but not a good showing for the review section here.
We're crushed. It's hurtful, but we bounce back. We still feed them the content, the people, the folks, the weavers out there, and we'll see how it goes. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Of course, if you're watching on here or if you're listening online, just go hit the subscribe button. That helps us out. You don't even have to watch them live or watch the replays on there. You can still go about listening on Spotify, but subscribing to the YouTube channel definitely helps. Hey, not a lot exciting going on in the personal corner besides Matthew's trip to the Hamptons. We had a fun little Memorial Day. Kai hosted a cookout. I believe he's been eating pork for like 9 straight meals. Is that correct?
Yes, I made a lot of pork. Too much pork. Pork every single meal, man. It was good. It's good. I don't know how much you should be eating pork. Probably not as much as I have been, Jim.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I had pork for 2 meals on Sunday at your place. I brought a bag of pork home from your house, and I have a niece's birthday this weekend where they will be serving more pork. So we are the pork brothers. Yeah, we're the pork brothers. I imagine there won't be pork at the wedding, Matthew.
No, there will not be. And we scratched it because of this overindulgence this weekend. So it was a late pivot, but yes, no pork will be offered at the wedding.
That makes sense. Hey, buy the shirts on the website. Feel free to check that out. Home field as well. They are listed there. That's it. Let's get into Roots Roundup. Talking news and notes, our little section recapping anything from the past week. As mentioned, draft decisions will be pushed out of the roundup. They will be the meat and potatoes of this podcast, the pork and beans of this podcast, Kai, if you will.
Weezer.
We're going to get to that later. But we're starting with a little bit of recruiting news. No big headlines, but 5-star forward Ron Holland, who had been committed to Texas, was kind of rumored to be headed to Arkansas, perhaps. He's going to the G League Ignite. Normally, we don't really even discuss these, but this hurt my heart because I watched him play at Duncanville, thought he was fantastic, was excited to see him in the college game, and alas, he is going the professional route. A tear falls slowly down my face. In the class of 2024, shooting guard Jonathan Powell is headed to Xavier. Sean Miller, well done, continuing to ramp up that pipeline into the program. Let's talk transfers, fellas. Stay in the Big East off the top. We had some internal discussions about this particular squad. Villanova with a big get on deadline day. Tyler Burton removed himself from the NBA draft, heading from Richmond to Villanova. Matthew, you're on board the hype train here. Tell us why.
I like the players, Jim. I think me and you are going to bully Kai into Villanova's good locker this season.
We will.
Well, gosh, if they're not good, you have serious problems with Kyle Neptune. Because I agree, the roster's great. I have questions about them not having a true point guard, and I have questions about Neptune after last season. So a lot of stuff's in the air still. Good roster on paper.
Yeah, I wonder how much of point guard and last year's issues come down to Justin Moore. I think he could be capable of playing true point guard, given he was with Gillespie for his first 3 years. He was hurt last year. He was a point guard coming out of high school. The one thing that concerns me, Matt, you've been diving more into staffs this offseason. I don't love that Neptune has like Ashley Howard and Baker Dunleavy, and guys that we have not been huge fans of at other places or have not had the success that maybe you would think of off the Jay Wright tree. Now they're back home to roost in Philly, and who knows if that's really going to allow this roster that we do like to take off.
He also lost his longtime assistant to Buffalo, to get real nitty gritty here, kind of in the assistant notes. The Baker Dunleavy thing, yeah, I know we all agree he's not really a good basketball coach. I think he's just doing like a general manager NIL role. So I don't know if we'll actually be having any clipboard input, Kai, but yeah, I'm with you. I'm probably overlooking the fact that Kyle Neptune is basically 1.5 or 1 year removed from being like, why is he at this job type of situation?
I'm just saying, I think we were too quick to say he's a great coach after the Fordham year, given what we know about Keith Urgo now. So now I'm on the side of, wait, maybe he's not great. And he's certainly not Jay Wright. So I'm still skeptical. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, the roster seems to fit the approach with hyper switchable 1 through 5. A lot of guys that can guard multiple positions, multiple creators offensively, though, as Kai mentioned, maybe not the true late shot clock, get out of jail free card that some of the point guards have been in the past. We'll see if Moore can do that. But I'm intrigued, man, especially with, UConn losing a couple pieces, Creighton losing a couple to the portal, Omax going pro for Marquette. The top of the Big East there might be a chance for Villanova to climb. We'll see. Other big news in the portal. Caleb Love has resurfaced out west. Kai, he's headed to Arizona after the admissions fiasco at Michigan, headed down to Tucson, maybe stepping into the Courtney Ramey role as the kind of like, what do you call the like old west, the gunslinger? That's what I'm thinking.
Yes.
Do you think this works alongside Bradley and Boswell and Pelle Larsson?
I actually think it's a pretty good fit for him decision, as good as one as you can find. First of all, the Ramey connection, obviously St. Louis. Okay, you got the connection there. But Tommy Lloyd seems like a coach that can deal with the type of personality of Caleb Love. He dealt with Kirk Kriisa, right, and dealt with it pretty well. So he's used to big personalities. He is a great coach in our opinion, and he's going to have a lot of freedom down there. Caleb Love, hopefully not too much freedom. We saw what he does with that. But in terms of where he could go, this is probably one of top 3 places I would say for him to land.
Yeah, Matt, I like the up-tempo approach, at least. I mean, he strikes me as a pretty solid transition player, even though the transition shot selection isn't great. But the constant hope, right, is if you can rein in the shot selection, maybe he becomes the impactful player that the talent level has always at least hinted at.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be any hesitation with like how he plays. It's sort of, he was in a tug of war with Bacot at UNC. I think at least he is unleashed, and I think also corralled in the right ways under Lloyd's tutelage. So we'll see how that pans out, though.
In other big guard news, about 2 hours ago on the Field of 68's Twitter, Ray J. Dennis, Matt, what's your nickname for him? Tell the people.
Ray J, he hit it first. Okay.
There we go. Yep, there we go.
Yes.
Ray J is headed down to Waco, playing for Baylor. Scott Drew's now a probable starting point guard, given the lack of experience in that backcourt with Adam Flagler out the door. From Toledo to Baylor, really huge for them, Kai, because that backcourt really lacked experience. I know Coy in the chat and other Illinois fans are going to be a little miffed because I think they were hoping he was going to be the linchpin of that offense and allow Shannon to move off ball.
Yeah, it's a a good get for Baylor. They definitely needed a guard like Dennis. They get him. We always wonder how mid-major players will transfer going up, translate. We'll see. I think he'll do pretty well, but I don't know. TBD.
Yeah, the MAC guys, I don't know, Matt. Don't we always perceive that league as like not
yeah.
a ton of defense? It's super up tempo.
Yeah, I just think he played for such a good coach, and he like plays so intellectually correct. And I think all of those concerns are negated by that. I think the Todd Kowalczyk Toledo thing. I know like the Marion Jackson thing didn't exactly pan out.
That's what scares me. He's the player of the year in the league.
And he wasn't awesome at Boise State, but he was pretty young still. I don't know.
Yeah. So I guess so my argument could also just go in my face, and like Kowalczyk's system is so good that it makes guards look better than they really are. We'll see. I mean, obviously he's close to a power conference talent. So his size, I think it translates a little better than Jackson's kind of weirdish game.
Yeah, I mean, it's a worthy gamble. I think Baylor, like I said, they needed the piece, and he's a guy that can produce. We'll just see if he's able to. And Matt, he's going to another system that's been great for guards over the years. So
guard
that certainly helps
for sure.
Also in the Big 12, TCU got some welcome news up front. Ernest Uday headed there after Matt. Possibly was he denied by Duke admissions? That's the whispers.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Unfortunate for the Blue Devils, but man, TCU's got like 500, 6'7" or taller guys. They're huge.
The roster confuses me, but like I guess if you're Dixon, just stack talent, and you're probably jaded by your injury run the last couple of years, so you probably think you can't have too much depth at this point.
Kai, you were a fan of Uday, so how do you feel about him at TCU with those other bigs?
I guess it fits what they're trying to do. Get every rebound, because there's going to be plenty of them offered. There's no shooting on this roster.
Made shots is
yeah, they're really athletic. They're really long. They can rebound, but yikes, no shooting still. I would have loved Uday on Mizzou. So good get, I suppose, for TCU.
Yep, sticking to the template of last year, very much for the Horned Frogs. Probably going to stay very red for that 3-point percentage block on Ken Pom. I wouldn't imagine that turns green next year.
No.
Alan Flanagan to Ole Miss. This was kind of the worst kept secret of the portal. His dad is on staff now under Chris Beard. Might end up playing point guard there. I know they kind of experimented with that at Auburn. Pearl did for a little bit during that Justin Powell year when Sharif Cooper was suspended, and Ole Miss needs ball handling badly. So curious to see what his role ends up being. They've got some other pieces there, interior defense, a little bit of wing scoring with Morrell and potentially Brandon Murray if he gets a waiver. They do need playmaking, though. That's the big question for Beard's new bunch. All right, guys, that's really it for news. Not a lot of injuries, coach stuff, not much random scheduling news. It was all about the NBA draft deadline. So we're going to dig all the way into that. I tried to come up with a logical way to go through a lot of these decisions. We will not hit every guy because there were 300 people. I think it was 246 were the amount of undergraduates that had entered the draft. But the first way I looked at it was I took our buddy Sam Vecenie's top 100 players, and anybody in the top 100 that did not go pro that has eligibility left, I highlighted. So we'll go through those guys. And then also guys that are not in the top 100 that did leave. We'll talk about that decision as well, because that's, especially in the era of NIL, maybe a little questionable or surprising, because you can still make money back in school. You don't need to go chase it in the professional ranks. Then we'll do some teams, some winners and losers that maybe will have a little bit of redundancy between the two sections. But let's start with those individuals, Kai, that stayed in college despite probably having a strong likelihood of getting drafted. So from Sam Vecenie's top 100, the highest ranked player not going pro is the aforementioned Terrence Shannon of Illinois. Illinois had a big day. We'll get to Mr. Hawkins in a little bit. But Shannon's back, the pride of Lincoln Park High School. What does this mean for the Illini, Kai? How does Brad Underwood's squad look?
Solid, especially with Coleman Hawkins too. And not to jump ahead, but Jeff Goodman said that Coleman Hawkins' decision was coming down to the wire due to a late NIL offering from Illinois to Coleman Hawkins, which I think is kind of great for college basketball. They can legitimately compete now with the NBA for these fringe guys that may or may not get drafted, but they want to go make money. So obviously it's great for Illinois. I am a little bit surprised, Matt, that Shannon came back. To me, and this is pure speculation, just watching him on the floor, it didn't seem like he loved being in college. Just my 2 cents there.
The Illinois thing last year was weird. Like, I still don't know what to make of it. I've kind of gotten sick of hearing the conspiracy theories or whatever on it's a new year. I think they've refreshed enough of that locker room to maybe put that to bed. Yeah, I mean, him and Marcus Domask is kind of an odd fit, Jim. I feel like there's kind of a similar parallel with Villanova's roster, just like a lot of length and like maybe not really a true point guard. And so how does it really work? But I don't know. It's sort of the pro influenced interchangeability. You get a bunch of long, the Bucks built their roster like this, right? A bunch of long, rangy guys that you can kind of just lean on your defense and hope the offense kind of figures itself out.
Yeah, it never figured itself out in Champaign
Right.
last year. That was the question. A lot of weird stuff against, especially the stiffer competition, like kind of my turn, your turn. It felt like, but I think that comparison to Villanova is apt. Where who is the guy that gets the ball late, or who's the one who settles things down when they turn it over twice in a row and has the extension of the coach on the floor? It's never been really what I perceive Shannon as, but he's talented. He can score. He had that one crazy 8 for 9 shooting game in Vegas early in the year, kind of an aberration. But if he continues to add that perimeter shot, then he becomes even more of a viable offensive threat. To quick answer a question from the chat, it was good to clarify. We're sticking mostly to decision day types or in the past week, like your Kyle Filipowski's, somebody that had returned and has been discussed on this pod before. Kevin McCullers, number 44 in Vicini's top 100. We discussed him in Kansas last week. So sticking more to the deadline day types, those late decisions. Next up, Matt, we have Adem Bona from UCLA. We can debate whether UCLA is a winner or a loser because Jaquez, Campbell, Clark, Bailey all had eligibility left and are going pro. But getting Bona back is huge, especially for Cronin, the way he likes to play, bully ball in the paint. We saw how much it hurt to not have him late in the year. What do you think of UCLA with Bona back?
Yeah, it's huge. Cronin's identity as a big man whisperer and that physicality, that brute force up front. I know he's kind of pivoted away from that now that he's in La La Land, but you got to have some resistance at the rim. And Bona was like absolutely that when he was healthy last season. So, I mean, just a massive piece. And behind him, you kind of have those unknown bigs, I guess. So, yeah, major returner.
Kai, that UCLA roster, it's a little barren for me. I'm not super amped about it, but
scary.
It's young.
Cronin's first real season. Cronin's first real season this year.
Yeah. I wondered if they could get Tiger to come out and be the steadying force for the final year. Matt's adult in the room phrase, but
that's right.
Not quite, unfortunately. I mentioned McCullough, Trey Alexander back at Creighton. Kai, do you want to discuss him in tandem with Kalkbrenner as number 46 and number 56 in Vicini's top 100, two closely linked guys? Mm-hmm. Neither one will graduate, so I don't think they can enter the portal late here. Pretty huge for McDermott and the team that now is making the sophomore to junior leap collectively.
Yeah, enormous. And if you want to call them a top 10 team, I might believe you. Despite losing Nembhard, you guys love Ashworth, obviously. He's a solid player, but
you love him too, just not as much.
I also like him a lot. But with Shireman, Kalkbrenner is the name. Like Alexander's higher, obviously, on the NBA totem pole, but Kalkbrenner is a Big East Player of the Year candidate, maybe front runner this season. Just hopefully not forgetting any guys top of my head.
Braden is better or worse than last year, Jim?
I think probably slightly worse at full health. Last year they weren't really at full health frequently, especially Kalkbrenner with the mono stuff. And even early in the year, remember in Maui how gaunt he looked and pale? So it felt like he was already sick even at that point. I think there will be a little bit worse, but like Kai said, I might have them top 10 and they didn't finish top 10 last year. So maybe I'm contradicting myself.
Mason,
I kind of feel like they
Miller.
were a top. Yeah, everyone loves him, right?
Emergence. How can you not?
He's just a twig.
Federico
he eats
King,
a lot this offseason.
I like Federico King, kind of a fun little bouncy guy off the bench. No, it's a good team. I think they'll be a little bit better next season. I just love the roster. Like Kaluma.
Kaluma's gone. Kaluma's
right. No, I think that's my point. I think everyone's like, you're replacing with the guy who's more of a know-your-role guy. I think that actually could be a good thing for this team. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll do this right now because Kaluma is number 55 on Vicini's top 100. And he is in the portal, so he's back available for for teams that need pieces. Kai, we had a little debate. I think we're on the same side. If you were a team for only 2023-24, would you rather have Kaluma or Olivier Kamwa, who is also back into the portal?
Kamwa, 100% Kamwa.
I agree.
I'm very in on this guy.
Yep.
Yes.
Kamwa's down there at number 97. in Vicini's top 100. So we can talk about him a little bit now too. Kaluma feels more upside projection. Offense is still an enigma and streaky. Kamo just knows what he is offensively, takes good shots. He's from that Tennessee defensive system, similar positions. You can play him at the 4, especially Kamo. You can go small ball with him at the 5. I'm with you. I think I'd rather have Kamo, despite some people saying Kaluma might be the best guy available in the portal right now.
Is it just money? I guess it's money, but why wouldn't you want to go back to Creighton if you're Kaluma? Look at your roster, man. You're a national title contender if you come back to school, a national title contender. Well, I don't understand why you don't want to do that. It's strange to me. He might still go back, but it's money. The answer is money. I know, but still.
Matt, you said Kamo as well.
Yeah. I mean, different players, you could argue, like maybe for a certain team, it could be a better answer than another, for others, but in a vacuum, I think Kamo's better. He actually is kind of like a skilled passer. He's just a complete player. I know his shooting is an aberration. He can look kind of gross in Tennessee's feast or famine offense that can go missing at times, but I just think he's a better player, better talent.
The thing that shocked me about Kaluma is that his block rate was sub 2%. And when I watched him, I felt like he would have a highlight reel block all the time, and it wasn't.
Well, really eye test fallacy, tough.
Yeah. How about that, Matt? Got to use data to support or challenge
occasionally
receptions.
It helps. Occasionally, it does help.
All right, stuck in the middle of all those Creighton guys in Mr. Vicini's top 100 is Judah Mintz, number 50. He is back, headed to Syracuse, joining JJ Starling with that sophomore backcourt. Also had a Chance Westry from Auburn, Naheem McLeod from Florida State, Matt's boy, Benny Williams. The Orange in good shape now that Mintz is back, Matthew.
Yes. I mean, I think there's a direct quote from Autry that was like, our entire offseason plan will be pivoted around the decision of Mintz. So it's like, okay, Mintz is back, and I think you're in a much better position. It's like very much a fork in the road point for the new era of Autry. It's kind of, I'll make another Villanova comparison here, Kai. A team that doesn't use a lot of depth, maybe Autry's going to change that this year, that he has a little deeper roster, but for a team that doesn't have a lot of depth historically, getting one of your key pieces back is enormous. And I think Mintz is obviously huge. I mean, he just does so much on both ends.
I never felt Syracuse didn't have depth. They just refused to use the depth.
Yeah, good. That's probably true. Could be true. Yeah.
Maybe Autry will be different. Again, I think Syracuse is one of the biggest unknowns going into this year because we don't know if Autry's going to be carbon copy Jim Boeheim or he's going to switch it up. It's going to be interesting. I wish Jesse Edwards was still there because McLeod's a downgrade, frankly. I mean, by a long shot.
Yep.
So this team, I really have no idea how to peg them right now, Jim.
Yeah, but all those sophomores off the bench, the Brown, Taylor, Copeland, like, are they going to play a bunch of small ball and flex those guys in with smaller lineups and wings and not use McLeod that much? And Westry can scale down a little bit. Benny Williams, like, there are options with that team. They're just still really young, and they've got a first-year coach. So that leads to that high variance, wide range of outcomes that that's the teams you get wrong in the preseason, or you can get very right.
Or very right.
Yes, that's the goal. That's the goal. Hopefully we can hit that one spot on. All right, it took us a while to get there, but we got to talk Zach Edey, the big man, the man in the middle, National Player of the Year. It was 59th, just inside the top 60, so first 2 rounds for Sam's top 100. But he's back at Purdue. We're going to do top 5 overall for each of us at the end of this pod, so stay tuned for that. So I don't want to give it away where you have Purdue right now. But Kai, this is just massive. I know we like the guys behind him, the Kaufman Wrens, but this is guaranteed 30 minutes a game, 20 points a game, high usage, high efficiency. It's like a cheat code, right?
Cheat code. He has to be he'd be a minus favorite to win the player of the year again this year. I don't know how he can't. The only way he cannot win is if Purdue just tanks, which I don't think is going to happen, or voters who are human say, nah, you already won it, someone else. Because if he averages 23, 13 again and plays 32 minutes a game, you have to give him the player of the year award again.
Yeah, you saying that made me like, who's competing? Like Filipowski is competing with him, maybe some of the freshmen, but like his production will be better than anyone else's. It's just more like, is he going to get punished for losing in the first round last year? Like the NBA MVPs always get that, like, oh, you didn't win the playoffs, you can't win a third in a row. It happened to Giannis and Jokic. What do you think, Matt? Where does Purdue stand? I mean, you don't have to give me their 1 through 5 ranking, but like high upside still, or do you think it's just more a high floor team?
I think it's definitely a high floor team, probably, high-ish upside. The thing with Edey is like all off season, all the NBA scouting stuff was like, wow, he actually moves a lot better than we thought. Like, I mean, Vicini tweeted how like he was actually very close to going pro, and people would have maybe taken him in the top 40. So like, I think he actually comes out as like a markedly better like defender in the ways that teams attacked him last year. Like, so if you can just improve that part of Purdue's defensive blemish, like it's a really good team with the Lawyer, Smith, Leaps, almost presumably coming, and the rest of the core production tech. Yeah, I mean, Purdue's a top 5 team. That's a lock. Absolutely.
They finished 7th. How can they be worse?
Right.
It would be shocking to see them be worse. Yeah, it was like losing David Jenkins really going to cripple them. I don't personally think so. His quickness drills, like lateral stuff in the combine, were way better than people expected. Kind of like middle of the pack for the entire class, which, he's faster than some wings, faster than some guards. And I remember being slightly impressed by him in space last year. Look, they went from like outside the top 100 defensively to 24th with him playing more minutes. So clearly he wasn't like the big downfall. Apologies to Trevion Williams. I think that was kind of a subtweet of him there, but that's kind of what the evidence shows.
He'll get better as a passer. Like that's just probably a good bet. Like he has 2 things off season he'll be working on, right? I'm already huge and dominant every way. I'll get better with my feet and I'll get better with passing. And if he does that, I mean, Purdue they might have a high ceiling after all.
Yep. Yeah. Ethan Morton shot 44% from 3 2 years ago, and last year it like tanked to 27 or whatever. But if he gets back up to 36 and isn't the guy you just leave alone and don't have to guard, then man, Purdue becomes even more potent, especially with those guards making a leap. All right, Kai, how about Dylan Mitchell at Texas? He is back. He did not take a 3 last year, but he had kind of impressed scouts at the combine because he went around the horn and made a bunch of 3s with that lefty stroke. We know he's a fantastic athlete. The big thing for Texas, and we talked about it, is they didn't have a ton of Big 12 caliber bodies, and we know he is one, especially as an athlete.
Was this surprising? I'm not totally ingrained in NBA draft Twitter, but I thought he was gone.
I think generally it was a little surprising. Like, just, okay, this is a projectable athlete that we can develop. Usually you like those guys young, but maybe they're starting to say, look, we want you to be able to produce on your rookie contract. And he almost certainly is going to be a 0 offensively to start his career. He shot 40% from the free throw line last year. But yeah, there's like whispers if he gets, I think even Gavoni tweeted it, if he's better offensively, he could be a first rounder next year.
Yeah. Yeah. We talked about Texas on the Big 12 pod, but their floor is pretty high. Their ceiling depends on Rodney Terry, depending on your point of view of his coaching.
I agree with that. How about that?
For sure. Yep.
The roster is just too good, I think, to be bad.
It's too good to be terrible, to be bad, et cetera.
Top end talent is there.
Yeah.
All right, Matt, how about Reese Beekman? The Beekster headed back to Virginia, kind of needed him, really, just with what was there and the unproven nature of the rest of that roster at the ACC level. But now you have like a defensive player of the year caliber guy in the conference. Still hasn't had the offensive breakout that I think people keep waiting for and wanting from him, but it's hard to in that system. Where does this leave Virginia for you? There's kind of been debates both with us and on some of the Field of 68 shows about their talent level as a whole.
Yeah, it's not great, but I do like the fit of the guys they got. Like with Andrew Rode coming in, I mean, part of me is like a guy from St. Thomas who played D3 basketball is going to also be an impact guy for Virginia. But I do think he's like
D3.
Well,
I don't think
D1
they were a D1 program.
I
right,
think,
and he was good.
He was a freshman this year, right? So technically didn't play
freshman
D3.
of the year.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
this is his first year. That's a good point.
said that as well on the AC podcast, Matt. So correct both of us.
Good.
There.
Thank you.
Okay,
No, I appreciate that. But like, I think he's a great fit next to Beekman, who, you could see this year going in the direction of Marcus Garrett's senior year from Kansas, to make a comparison where like we all expected a huge offensive leap and like, oh, he's a defensive hawk and he's a 2-way stud. And like, look out for Garrett being like a dark horse part of the year. And maybe Beekman just really isn't that good offensively, or he gives you something offensively and you have a guy like Rode, who's an offensive wizard. And the upside they have with those sophomores, it comes down to like the sophomores for that team this year, though, Kai. It's like, how talented really are the young guys that the fans love, but we're always a little bit skeptical on. It's like, okay, you haven't done anything. I don't know.
Yeah, and how much does Dante Harris step right into Kihei Clark's role and keep the ball out of Beekman's hands a little bit? I always kind of thought they might be better if it was more Beekman last year. We'll see if they actually turn the keys over to Beekman or if Dante Harris ends up really taking over that role. Deron Holmes back to Dayton, probably the preseason A-10 player of the year. Kai, you looked on that list and seems rather inevitable that he would get that slot. There were always whispers he might enter the portal, but that's too late for him now. How about the Flyers? I saw a little, they've only made one tournament under Anthony Grant, and that would have been the 2020 one that didn't even happen. So they haven't played an NCAA tournament game under Anthony Grant.
Yeah, I know his seat's getting pretty warm. There's heavy skepticism that Holmes would transfer. I think your Dukies, Matt,
Yes.
were kind of like probably tampering, as most teams do, trying to get him away from Dayton early.
Sure.
There's no reason they can't be like top 30 good this year.
Yeah, I agree.
Malachi Smith wash year last season. You get Holmes back. You still have Elvis and Bray. That's enough to be really good.
I think they're still a little thin, and in the wake of last year's injury avalanche that just kind of torpedoed their season after like all the hype that we showered on them before the year, I do kind of worry there's a deja vu that's going to come in. But I'm just glad for Dayton, after 2020, after last year's hype season got torpedoed again, I'm glad they at least get like another year of optimism running it back with the core nucleus of, Malachi Smith, Elvis, Holmes, Bray. Like that's a real team. Yeah, that could be top 30 good if everything breaks right. I agree with Kyle.
Yeah, Kamara leaves, Mongolian Mike leaves, but if Malachi Smith is actually healthy and what he was freshman year, then yeah, the ceiling is actually there. And the void at the top of the A10 is such that they could easily reassert themselves.
Right. Just be the best in your class and you'll dance. Yep.
The last member of the top 75. So that there's guys outside of this that stayed in school, but you feel like 75 are the ones that have the chance to get drafted really. And the other ones kind of got to scratch and claw to get there. But Grant Nelson, North Dakota State, remember the groundswell during the season that maybe he's like first round pick caliber. And obviously the combine evidence did not agree with that. Draft Twitter stomps their feet angrily. But he's in the portal, Kai, and any team with even remote minutes to use in the front court needs to be like hurling bags at him.
Oh yeah, he's awesome. I wish Mizzou would get him. He's incredible. I saw someone, was ESPN maybe labeled him the best transfer in the portal. Maybe. Yeah. I mean, 6'11" and can do everything. It's a pretty good start. Yeah.
Played against Summit front courts, Jim. That's my asterisk.
Point.
So that's all Ed. That's
his
really
performance
like what it looks like
against
against Summit.
bad too.
It's
really bad.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So
it is bad or it isn't bad.
Very bad.
Yeah, it's not good.
That's always the question with some of these Summit guys that go up. Like Stanley Amude did okay at Arkansas, but he didn't have much of a
the bigs, especially, right? Like the bigs forwards, where it's like that's where it's just so weak.
Yeah, you're going from playing against non-athletes to high level, like professional caliber athletes, and that can be a huge twist. All right, I'm going to list a few of the next guys from 76 through 100, and you guys jump in, or just Kyle. I'll list a few and you tell me the one that's most interesting or intriguing for you. Naquan Tomlin back to Kansas State, Emmanuel Miller to TCU, Cliff Omori to Rutgers, Dylan Jones to Weber State. I'll stop it there. Of those four, which one do you think means the most for their team next year or moves the needle the most?
Omori means the most to his team.
That group. Huge.
Rutgers absolutely needed him, especially with McConnell. And I don't know if Mulcahy.
I'm looking to see.
Gone.
Somehow it's like
I assume
14 hours after the deadline and people are still like, what's the deal with Mulcahy?
Yeah. Omori gives Rutgers like a little bit of a chance to have another magic season where they're way better than everybody thinks. And then Tomlin, of course, is huge too for Kansas State. So those two guys. Yeah, Jones is great for Weber State, but he's not as good as those guys.
Yeah, isn't on a national team that's going to be making an impact on that kind of race. I mean, God, do you remember last year? I'm going to throw Matt under the bus a little bit here, but there's a point where Dylan Jones missed a game for Weber State, and that was like good.
It doesn't matter.
Subtraction. Like, what are you talking about?
Top 90 NBA prospect, apparently.
Yeah, he's a good player.
Never lived that down.
Yep. Matt, I want to talk Colorado with you because I know you love Tristan Da Silva. You're happy to see him back. They've got a top 5 recruit. They've got KJ Simpson. They've got Eddie Lampkin, the beefcake. What do you think about the Buffaloes? Are they a contender to win the Pac-12? Are they ahead of USC? Are they right there with Arizona? What are your takes on the Buffaloes now with Da Silva in the fold?
I was late to sniff the Buffalo hype, which is kind of real out there. And then I look at the roster. It's like, oh, well, yeah, it's kind of an intriguing roster. Then I go to, Caesars and they have the futures and they're, I think 40. I mean, they're, a top 25 price team. And it's like, okay, so everyone's thinking it's going to be good. And I'm kind of at the point, I'm like, let's pump the brakes a little bit. Like it's a big bet on KJ Simpson, Eddie Lampkin staying healthy, and then Cody Williams, who I don't know a thing about, but I mean, if you're a top 10 freshman, I got to think that's probably a good thing. my concern is that we've just seen increasing numbers of these, from the 5th to the 25th ranked 5-stars that they just don't mean as much in this COVID era where experience means everything. Like if that's a pivotal foundation of why you're going to be a top 15 team, that's what people think the upside is for this team, which I don't believe. That's kind of a dicey risk. So I don't know. That's my general concern with how I look at the Buffs. But De Silva's my guy. Kyle Edson,
a lot of the shade thrown at Kentucky, and a team we'll discuss a little bit more later, is that this class isn't actually that strong. There's not super duper star power at the top. And Kai, that maybe is a little bit of shade on Cody Williams, who, fun fact for you, this will become much more, it'll probably be said in every game he plays this year, but Jalen Williams' younger brother, the Santa Clara lottery pick.
Oh,
this is his younger brother. So high pedigree there. We love the younger brother of an NBA player. I'm sure he's been going head to head with Jalen for years, but I just don't know with that freshman class, if that is like supposed to be the needle mover, like Matt said, whether that's going to be enough.
It's interesting. I have not watched many freshmen from this class, but I watched the 4 Duke freshmen today, and I was like, these guys are all awesome. And they're all not in the top 10. So I don't know about that.
Yeah. The highlight reels, if edited correctly, they make everybody look incredible.
I mean, maybe. I like to think I can see a good player, and these 4 guys were awesome. I don't know.
Jim, isn't the general NBA scout consensus this is a bad class, right?
That's what I'm saying. Is if you're like Kentucky and reliant on the best class in the country with nothing else, it's not the right year for that. It's not like there's, generational
RJ Barrett, Zion Williamson, like those guys aren't. Yeah.
Yep. Not walking through that door. All right. Last couple top 100 guys. Eric Gaines back to UAB. Hakeem Hart back to Villanova.
Hakeem Hart's my guy. Just real quick, Stan. He's my guy. I love him. I think he's underrated.
Yep. Kamwa back to the portal. I think he's just a good fit.
He was my guy originally, freshman year. Yep. You guys didn't give me credit. I said Hakeem Hart's awesome. I saw his one awesome game, and since then I've kind of cooled. He's all right. He's good.
And then Lamont Butler back to San Diego State. Kai, the Aztecs got Lamont Butler and Jaden Ledee back. Got to be a winner of this deadline. Yeah. Despite some of the 5th-year seniors they lost, they've also brought in Reese Sticks and Waters from USC. I mean, there's good teams in the Mountain West, but they might be the favorite once again.
Yeah, it kind of sucks they made the championship this past year, because every single year we were higher on San Diego State than the consensus because they're always good. And now they're probably going to be overrated this season compared to where they usually are. Still an awesome team. Still
like 150-1 to win the title. I put a little on that.
That seems. I agree. I saw that too, Jim. Yeah.
You bring back Trammell and you bring back Ledee and Butler, so big time shot makers, creators. I think Dixon Waters is a nice add. Jay Powell from Campbell seems to be a good scheme fit. They could be the best team in the Mountain West again and get a 6 seed, 7 seed, and at that point, I'll take 150-1. All right, let's go the other way. Guys that are outside the Sam Vecenie top 75, so might have a harder time getting drafted, that stayed in the draft. We'll start with good old Emoni Bates, the content machine that he is, leaving from Eastern Michigan. He is 76th on the top 100, so we are going to discuss him briefly. Kaya, I didn't feel like he did enough at Eastern Michigan to get me super excited this year, but he was really good at the combine in the pickup games or the scrimmages. So maybe that was enough for people. I don't know. What did you think about his talent level in the 2 years he was in college?
He's 6'10" and can shoot from anywhere. So that's awesome. I don't think he's not a good basketball player right now. He doesn't really know what he's doing.
He's a hooper, not a basketball player.
Yeah, sure. Nice. I guess he shoots. When you're 6'10" and can shoot from anywhere, you're going to look good. Eastern Michigan was terrible. And I think that's a huge indictment. He could not win in the MAC with the team that had also talent on that team. He couldn't win at all. In fact, they finished almost last place in that conference. I don't know. He's still really young. So I get him leaving. He didn't need to be in college, but who cares?
Yeah, that team looked like it had quit at times during the year, and he didn't win an AAU ball either, which, Matt, those red flags start to go up. Like, is this guy a winner or a stat sheet patter? Well, I don't know.
Yeah, he played better against good teams. That's like my only good thing I'll say about him, honestly. So
motivation.
I just think, not like he's Ben Simmons, but you could argue that he just didn't care about the team, and that's not a good quality if you're looking to pick a guy, but he probably projects better than his 317th ranked team performance indicates.
Yeah, to your point, in normal games, 30% usage, 100 O rating in his 4 most difficult games, tier A. So Toledo, Kent State, going back to the Michigan game early, and FAU, 33% usage, 117 offensive rating. So like he really did step up when it was like, we joked about it on our show all year. Like, does Emoni Bates care about this game or not?
Yeah.
And most of the time that answer seemed to be a little bit of a no. All right. Mike Miles leaving TCU. Kai, we just hit on them a little bit with Uday. This takes away their best backcourt playmaker, shooter. They brought in some pieces via the portal, but it just feels like the backcourt's not going to have enough punch from the perimeter. There's talent there, but not perimeter punch.
Yeah, he's not getting drafted, right? I mean, respect for him for wanting to get out of college, and he's not DeAndre Williams, so good for him. But it's a huge blow to TCU. Jameer Nelson's not even close to Mike Miles. They're not going to be as good this season.
Yep, agreed. Even playing that same style, they'll be good defensively and awesome on the offensive glass, but their games will be brick fests. Matthew, go to Cincinnati. Landers Nolley, the third, headed to the draft. Actually, it might be the second. I can't remember if it's which Landers Nolley it is in the line. Former Virginia Tech, former Memphis, former Cincinnati. Can shoot, big wing, seems to fit that mold. He really rebounded well last year, but I don't know if he's going to get drafted, really. I mean, just based on this positioning.
Yeah, I kind of liked him next year as part of the Cincinnati equation. I still like Cincinnati overall, but I liked him. I liked them a lot more with him in the mix.
We mentioned Tumani Kamara. I want to talk Tosan Uwoma from Princeton here, because it does feel like maybe his stock was as high as it's going to get, but he's barely inside Mr. Vicini's top 100. He had another year left where he could have gone and played at a power conference school. He initially entered the portal and then quickly left. Now, this wasn't a deadline choice, so maybe I'm stepping back on the original premise of our ranks here. But Kai, I kind of wish we would have gotten to see him at a higher level and what he would have done in a different system.
Yeah, he would have made six figures at a power conference school. But he can also go to Europe and make just as much money. So I'm fine with him leaving college.
Yeah, valid point. Kamara gone from Dayton. Jacob Toppin gone from Kentucky. I'm going to holster the Kentucky talk still, Matt. I think we can do that in a little bit when we get to actual team losers, just because of the momentum that does not seem to be going Big Blue Nation's way. Damian Baugh also gone, so another TCU guard. But Matt, how about Chase Audige leaving from Northwestern? We did our Big Ten recap recently and kind of assumed that they would have their whole backcourt back. But no Audige, what does that do to the Wildcats' prognosis going forward?
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, I think him and Bowie were like the two kind of dueling dragons that set the tone for why they were so good and why we liked them next year. And now it's like, okay, one more domino falls the wrong way, and you can see Northwestern having a little bit of a letdown type of season relative to the hype that they are garnering right now.
Yeah, speaking of Princeton, they've got Ryan Langborg likely stepping into that starting spot, but that bench, there's not much to it, but of course they don't need to play super deep. They played slow, awesome defensively last year. That could still be their calling card this season. And Kai, 3 unranked guards that raise my eyebrow, at least that they're going pro. Malachi Smith from Gonzaga could have come back and maybe been a bigger piece for a potential title contender, but I also get being upset of getting buried behind maybe some inferior guards. Terry Roberts of Georgia and Justin Powell of Washington State. We were surprised by this last one.
Yeah. Hey, maybe Powell can work. I said this yesterday, but I think Powell someday could work into the NBA. He is 6'6". He can shoot. Maybe he can be a Duncan Robinson guy, Jim, eventually. Who knows? Handle the ball a little bit too. I don't really understand the move, but to each their own. Malachi Smith, I get it. You're old. He's 24. So that kind of makes sense, or he's going to be 24. Roberts, I'm a little surprised he left. Georgia, it sucks for them, but yeah. Ultimately, these guys, they don't move the needle a ton, I'll say.
Matt, Wazoo, no Gay, no Powell. Where do we stand on your annual Cougars optimism?
Yeah, this stinks. It's cooling. It's cooling. It is. I do think Powell will be on the Heat in a playoff series in 6
Right.
years, making impact jump shots off the bounce. I do believe that will be a thing.
Yeah. If you're undrafted and Miami even like texts you or gives you an inkling of interest, you gotta be like, yep, I'm going there. Why would I go anywhere else? They are proven to turn those guys into contributors and make them $50 to $90 million. So I think that's got to be everybody's hope if you're going undrafted. let's talk teams now. That was, I believe, the extent of the surprising go decisions. Let's talk some winners, losers. Now, this isn't necessarily going to be surprise. Like this team I'm going to start with, I think we're not surprised that they got two key pieces back, but Matthew, the FAU Owls, they're a winner.
Hoot.
Janelle Davis is back. Elijah Martin is back. 8 of their top 9 pieces are back from a Final Four team. There's mucho hype train out there. Even Woj, the NBA insiders, calling them a top 5 team. Tell me about Hoot. Tell me about the Owls.
I mean, what's there to say? I think they are. I'll just say this. I'm going to ignore every rational bone in my body, and everyone will make the right cases why this is ripe for a hangover, why they're going to be overrated as a top 5, top 10 team. I just don't care. I'm going to be on the square bandwagon of FAU Nation. This is a top 5 team. So they're good.
So if they are aligned as a top 20-ish team, you plan to bet them a lot early,
I will be
correct?
betting on them. Yes. Good luck betting against them this year. That's all.
Fair point.
To those
That will be
treading
nauseating.
into the waters.
Yeah.
Kai, I have a pitch on FAU that comes from listener Pete,
Yes.
a guy whose opinion I very much respect. He felt that FAU could be, in theory, a better postseason team than regular season.
Love this take.
In the postseason, they can play a ton of different styles, different lineups. They're guard heavy, a lot of different creators, hard to prepare for with quick turnarounds or unfamiliar teams, maybe better in non-conference as well, that kind of an angle.
Yes.
But maybe not quite top 5 caliber as they step up in leagues. Let's not forget to the American. Your thoughts?
I don't think they're top 5, but they could be top 10 ceiling, right? I think they're going to be awesome in non-conference again. I think they're going to be better prepared than most teams they face. And to your point, in the postseason, it's the same thing. They're hard to prepare for. It's why all the Ivy teams are good in the non-con as well. So I still think they'd be awesome. Torvik, I'm just looking ahead here, has him 20th. He hasn't updated all his teams yet, though. That sounds kind of right. I'll probably be a little higher on them, but it just depends on the rest of the landscape.
Here's
very, very good.
Here's a fact. I have one fact to back up my my exceedingly biased, heart-driven take here. Last 12 games of the year per Bart Torvik, Kai, FAU 10th overall in the country, and they shot 36% during that 12-game run. It wasn't like they were blistering hot from 3. They just played like a legit top 10 team down the stretch. So I think there's some evidence that they can like legit be a top 10 team from start to finish.
Matt,
So,
go check what UNC was in the last 12 games of 21-22.
Yep. Yeah, but Hubert Davis is not coaching. Hubert Davis is not coaching this basketball team, Jim. That is the key differentiator.
One last thing on FAU, I'll plug Will Warren at Stats by Will on Twitter, wrote a really nice free piece on his Substack about teams making, he called it the double bounce, the Mario double jump, whether, they jumped up one year and then can they do it again the next season? And it seems to be very tightly correlated to talent. Teams that are really talented can do that. FAU doesn't have like the pro pedigree or the recruiting pedigree. It's going to be tough for them. It's possible, but I think it is going to be a challenge. We'll see if they're able to sustain. I mean, they sounded hungry after last year's press conference. I'll give them that much.
It's just amazing how close we were to not realizing this. Like we say this every year, but FIU and Louisiana Tech took them to overtime last year.
I was at that game.
They won other close games. They were 40th in KenPom on February 23rd. It wasn't like a dominant team. It was a really good team, but
the Memphis timeout.
Yeah. I disagree. I think this was damn near close to a dominant team until the second part of conference play, when they had a similar lull that UConn did, where teams doing a scout against them. They kind of hit a little bit of a slog, weren't making shots. And then I think they kind of flipped the gear back on for postseason that we kind of saw in non-con. It just was against bad teams. So we didn't take it as seriously. I'm reaching for every straw I can find to justify why I'll be betting on this team every game. Probably.
They're awesome, but I mean, they didn't play a great schedule last year in non-con. They didn't.
Yeah. May talked about that. They tried to. All the teams ended up like sucking. Like Brian's supposed to be good. They stunk.
Right.
Who the other teams they played? They all just were bad. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of those teams preseason you would have said were really good. So that's a good point.
But yeah, to Kai, to your point of we were so close to not seeing this conference tournament, they're up 2 with 3 minutes left on Middle Tennessee in that weird venue where anything could happen. And fortunately, they were able to claw that game out and blew out UAB in the tournament final. And the rest is history. But all right, enough FAU. Kai, I'm going to go to you next. And I want you to tell me a team from this list of winners that I have top secret that no one else can see, or another team that you felt rich got richer or big time decisions for them out of the portal, who do you want to zero in on as a winner from deadline day?
We kind of talked about Illinois already, but they're a clear winner.
The biggest winner by far. Like, I'm sorry.
By far, wow.
I think so. Go ahead. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, we'll see how they fit again. You could blame the freshman point guards, I guess, the guards in the team that I guess Underwood hated. Yeah, a TBD on that one. I don't know. Who else? Michigan State. Yeah, this is a clear winner here. Everyone seems to think they're a surefire top 5 team, and I might have them in mind as well right now. Just spoiler. But I think there's debate. Jim. Yeah, AJ Hoggard and Jaden Akins, by the way, are the guys that came back from Michigan State.
Two key backcourt pieces, yes. But you take out that super high volume, mega efficient 4-man shooting of Joey Hauser, and maybe the spacing's not quite as great. There's a lot of questions at the 5 spot. I know Michigan State fans soured on Sissoko late in the year. Xavier Booker has a lot of like motor concerns, basically from every scout you read. And we know Tom Izzo doesn't adore 5-star big man. Look at him burying Jaren Jackson Jr. for that evidence. And then maybe Colin Cooper's performance, Matt, in the NCAA tournament, where he emerged as a little bit more of a fungible defensive piece, is going to be big. But there are enough questions outside of that backcourt triumvirate and talented but unproven freshman class coming in. Yeah, you can have questions about Michigan State. Real quick, Matt, Purdue or Michigan State, the favorite in the Big Ten right now?
Purdue.
Kai.
Purdue.
I would agree. Better team last year, got a lot better. I think there's internal improvement capable from that backcourt. Still, I don't know if they're going to have quite the wing athleticism, but I'm with you. I also think Michigan State can be great, but Purdue, I think, is the behemoth at the top that needs to be taken down before somebody else gets that favorite stance. All right, Matt, what about you? Anybody else as a winner that you think is worth highlighting right now? I like Texas getting Mitchell back just because, as we said, I think they're like 7 or 8 guys that they need in that system, and they got a big one that can help that defense thrive.
Yeah, I think Texas is probably 2 for me. I said Illinois so emphatically because I think both just where the program is, Illinois, and you can kind of make this comparison with Texas too. Like, 1 or 2 guys that could have gone either way with how last season for Illinois turned out and kind of how sour it was. Underwood, I think, needed that momentum. Like, I think now we talk about Illinois in just a vastly different light than we would have had those guys not come back. Now they look deeper, but Luke Goody in there. The young guards have room for improvement. I think you don't have to force them into key high leverage roles right away. You can kind of groom Harris and those dudes. I just like how that tilted so well to their favor. And same with Texas too. You get Asmus, Rodney Terry, a guy who's going to just hear all types of question marks and skeptics. But you get a guy who basically makes you, Asmus can make you look smarter than you are, right? Like Paul Mills, I think he's a good coach. Paul Mills with Max Asmus looks like a great coach. And I think he can make Rodney Terry look really good for at least a year, build some momentum, and, see where it goes from there.
That's why their floor is so high.
Yeah. Asmus is such a, command.
You have a dominant high usage pick and roll guard that is going to be probably efficient and has shown to be efficient at against that level of competition. Although that Duke bludgeoning that they had in the first round was a bummer, but I'm not going to put that all on him. Kai, one unconventional winner I cited here, I'm kind of saying that in air quotes, winner, is needy teams. Because of the guys in the portal that could have gone pro, only Julian Phillips went. We got a lot of guys back with Grant Nelson, Kamwa, Zion Pullen, Ray J. Dennis returned, helped out Baylor, Kaluma, Mongolian Mike, Vanover, Tyron Lawrence came back and went to Vanderbilt. Isaiah Miranda, the former top 50 recruit at NC State. Like, there's a lot of guys now in the portal that are no longer a threat to go pro that I think helps, because there's a lot of teams competing and these guys are going to get big time bags.
Yeah, still some massive dominoes to fall. I wish they'd fall, because I'm starting to get into college basketball prep mode right now, and I need to know my rosters. But some of these teams are going to get really good and take it to the next level with these guys coming in.
Matt, one last winner that I think maybe went under the radar, I don't know how much they've been discussed as a winner on other shows, is Auburn, because I think Janai Broome was legitimately close to leaving with his mobility, and I think he played well in the 5-on-5 stuff at the Combine. Great shot blocker. They get Jalen Williams back for a 5th year as well. I don't love Auburn next year, but Wendell Green's gone, so a little some of that streakiness in the backcourt maybe gets replaced by Aiden Holloway, the freshman. And you just have another fantastic front court, and Pearl has shown he can win with that kind of a roster construction.
Yeah. No, it's huge. And I actually kind of like the guards. The Holloway kid looks pretty good. Kind of, if you've gotten to his film yet,
Not yet.
but I like him.
But he's number
Katie
17. He can't be good.
Yeah, that's true. Sorry, I guess I've written off that entire range of recruits. And I love Denver Jones from FIU. I know it's kind of a big leap. Think he'll be good. I think he'll be awesome. I think he's like a perfect pearl guard and he'll be legit there. And so, yeah, you get the interior brute force and rim dominance to kind of hold that part of the foundation. And yeah, I think Auburn, huge winner. I'm with you on that one, Jim.
Yep. Other maybe a little more under the radar, Tulane got 3 guys back. They were actually all right up to the wire. Sion James, Jalen Forbes, Kevin Cross, all are big pieces for Ron Hunter's system. Nebraska got Keisei Tominaga back. Kai, I never thought of him as a pro level player just because of the size, but man, can he shoot. And it's good for the Huskers to get him back.
Yeah.
Creighton also obviously a winner. Kind of surprising that nobody from that team last year at all went pro. Obviously they lost guys in the portal, but everybody is back in college.
And they're all pro prospects. It wasn't like we don't expect you to go pro someday. Yeah, they're all pro prospects. Yeah. Tominaga, good job. He's like 6'2" and weighs less than me. He's not a pro.
He can stroke
in
it.
the US.
Can he shoot it though?
He can shoot, man, for sure. He can shoot.
All right, let's switch gears to losers here. And I think there's really only one place to start because they might have only 7 scholarship players. And I believe it's 96 career points scored. And they've been discussed on a lot of these shows, Eye on College Basketball, the Field 68 stuff has talked about them, but Kentucky, Matthew, 5 freshmen coming in, but Oscar for sure gone. Chris Livingston for sure gone. Jacob Toppin for sure gone. That was a while back. Antonio Reeves is coming back to school, but there's a lot of whispers that he might transfer. What's happening with Kentucky and how nightmarish could this go considering what the roster looks like?
Like when you say there's not a lot of veteran presence on, like there's literally 0 veterans. It's just strictly freshmen and like a few remnant sophomores, I believe. So yeah, I mean, like I think you need Reeves to come back in a huge way, as well as that is like the fact that your kind of optimism hinges on Antonio Reeves not grad transferring, Kai, like kind of puts into perspective where you are mentally as a Kentucky fan. Yeah, the talent's great, but again, Jim, you said earlier, this is not the year to be betting big on the blue chippers.
Yeah, Kai, I think about the Champions Classic to start the year. Like Duke, Kansas, Michigan State could all be ranked top. That could be your top 3 in a poll. And then you have Kentucky with nobody that's played like 100 minutes in college.
Calipari's lost his fastball, man. He's lost it. He has 3 top 10 recruits here and another top 15, but you got to hang on to veterans, man. You're Kentucky.
Or find some in the portal, right?
Well, he's clearly doing something wrong. And that's probably a little bit of a consequence of recruiting 4 top 15 guys. Nobody good wants to come to your school because they think they're going to play behind freshmen. And that's probably warranted. And there's 350 plus schools you can go to instead. Last 4 years, 27, 6, 49, 29, Kentucky and KenPom. This is not the elite Kentucky we're used to seeing. I'm usually way higher on this team in the preseason. Yeah, I'm not sure I can be this year.
Yeah, we're going to be in a new Cal range is 25 to 40. That's going to be where Kentucky settles in. Oh, it's very different considering the run that he had for years and years and years there. Matthew, other losers, I think UConn's a bit of a loser simply because Andre Jackson could have come back. He was outside the first round, but fringe, I believe he was 32nd in Sam Vecini's top 100. But I remember right after the national title game, he's like, I'm back if Coach Hurley wants me back. Obviously, his stock changed and he is not, in fact, back. And that backcourt, besides Tristan Newton, is really lacking in experience. And maybe there's talent in the freshman class, but Kai, I don't want to see Hassan Diarra play a ton. And I don't know. There's rumors they might get Cam Spencer, but man, UConn is Donovan Clingan and Caravan and maybe a little bit more question marks than we'd expect.
Yeah, I think they proved last year that they can, to some degree, scheme around lack of talent. But last year they had scheme and they had talent. That's why they were so good. Next year they have a lot of scheme to be integrating to kind of mask the lack of talent they have in the backcourt. At least proven talent, right? It's a very young team in the backcourt with the guys they have coming in. But when you have a guy like Clingan, couldn't we just see him being like Zach Edey 2.0, and it just makes everyone's life easier? And Tristan Newton looks like an all-star next to him, and the young guys can play easy and free because you have such a gravitational force. I don't know. That's kind of the swing thing. If Klingon's like a 30-minute a game dominate factor, then that just, changes the entire narrative on this team.
I think last year's a perfect storm, and they're not close to that this year.
Wow. Kai's a hard sell.
I think he'd be top 20 and maybe top 15, but the current roster, I think Cam Spencer changes things, but I think Andre Jackson is so important, and losing him is an enormous deal. And by the way, Jordan Hawkins and Snogo, Big East Player of the Year. They lost a lot. It was a perfect team last year, constructed wise, and not this year.
Fits super well. You mentioned Hawkins in there, like the shooting gravity he had as he ran around screens, and like every big man had to like panic and jump out, and then Sonogo would roll to the basket and seal somebody that was coming over to help and get an easy layup. I don't know if Klingon has that offensive upside, at least in his first year. And he was kind of a foul machine last year, almost 6 fouls per 40 minutes. He could end up being in foul trouble, and that might be what hurts him and stops him from playing 30 minutes. As Matt mentioned, it's always been like a secret strength of Edey's, is that he stays out of foul trouble, much to the chagrin of Big Ten opponents and opposing fans.
Yeah, and he has no change up with Sonogo, right? Like that's kind of like the too big system worked, and you don't have that to fall back on this year.
I'm with Kai. I'm a little more cool on UConn. Like they were top 3 in a lot of the initial odds right after the NCAA tournament. Now they're down in kind of like 8 to 10 range, and I think I'd be even a little bit lower on them. Other Big East team, Marquette. This wasn't right up at the deadline, but Olivier Maxence Prosper is gone. Kind of their 6'8", versatile Swiss Army knife. Kai, we did discuss them on the Big East pod. You can kind of throw David Joplin in there. Chase Ross is a nice piece for them, but does that limit the ceiling a little bit for you? How much does that change your Golden Eagles perspective?
A little bit, but I still think they're top 10. I almost made them top 5. I think they're going to be awesome.
Without Max?
Man, they're going to be awesome.
I considered it as well. I mean, I tried
he wasn't
to do
their best player.
Yeah.
It's Cole.
Okay. I thought he was their second best player.
The first team All-American was their best player.
I know, Cole's best player.
Or whatever.
You could make an argument Oso was second best player too. Like that and maybe Cam Jones was like second best offensive player. I mean, Omax was kind of like the guy that unlocked a lot of different versatile lineups and let Shaka be flexible. But Kai, as I was doing 6 through 10, I was like, I have to have Marquette here. So they're still right up there for me.
They're top 5 bullet for me with Prosper. Now probably 6 to 10-ish.
Yeah. I'm still kind of shocked though. Why did Oso not get looks pro wise? Like I know Prosper's like the better athlete, and so I guess he projects better. But yeah, Jim, to your point, I mean, Oso is, both ways
Prosper
immensely
shoots.
valuable play. Yeah, and Prosper makes shots, I guess.
Yeah, Prosper shoots, and he can guard more positions. Like I don't know that Oso can get down and guard like 2s and 3s. Like Omax is going to be guard 4 positions probably in the pros right away. All right. Another potential loser, Kai. Let's just do this. We're sad. We lost Kobe Brown.
Mizzou.
Program staple. I mean, he took it right down to the deadline. I know there was NIL money set aside for him that Mizzou is kind of waiting to use. Maybe it gets thrown at Connor Vanover now. But, I mean, a program legend, guy that stayed through thick and thin. I believe one of the Mizzou guys on Twitter said, he left it better than he found it. That's for sure. And we will miss Kobe Brown.
Sure. Understatement of the year.
Yeah.
I hate that comment. That's like, it's like we're some poverty program. This is a serious basketball program. One of the best in the country for many, many years. And
we were poverty for a few years.
We hired Frank Haith, which was a problem because he left the team barren. And then you hired Kim Anderson, the worst hire in the history of hires. So yes.
It's a transition hire.
He left it better than he found it. So did every single player after Kim Anderson. But I love Kobe Brown. I love him. Wish him luck. Mizzou's in trouble.
Yeah, not a lot of rebounding, not a lot of size. Maybe you get Isaiah Mosley. Let's just keep wishing upon that star until it finally comes to fruition. Matt, Ohio State, I put as a loser. This Justice Sueing wasn't a late decision, like right up against the deadline, but we knew Sensabaugh was probably gone. We didn't know for sure that Sueing would leave. And I don't know if Ohio State's going to have that like second year breakout that I thought they might. I like their sophomore class, promising freshman class. Transfer portal has been a little bit underwhelming in my opinion. And Sueing was a big veteran piece that it was really good last year.
Yeah, really good. I think they'll miss him. I do love the sophomore class. I'm kind of between a rock and a hard place. Like it's probably more minutes for those guys that may not have played as much, but Suing was such a critical two-way piece that this is a net negative on top of the already anticipated Sensabaugh departure. Still like Chris Holtmann, still believe this team will be better than people think. Last year was weird and not as bad as it looked on the surface. Just want to underscore that. That's my final takeaway.
Yeah, I strongly agree there that they were not like some Big 12s or Big 10 cellar dweller, useless, like fire your coach type of team. They were bad in close games. And unfortunately, when you have 3 to 4 freshmen in the primary rotation, that can happen. We mentioned Washington State as a big loser. I had Baylor because Flagler left, but I think Flagler leaving allowed them to get Ray J. Dennis. He said that on the Field 68 feed that, that opened up the starting point guard spot, gave him a lot more minutes. So it's hard to call them a full loser there. Kai, anyone else that jumped out at you as we just went through some of these teams, players that you want to highlight, or is that it for our deadline discussion?
I have one.
Well, I want Matt's thoughts on Washington State. This team's weird.
No, I want to talk about it. I'm upset. I'm bothered.
But
I'm perturbed.
Might not be awful. I don't know.
No, I know, Kai. I'm still going to like them. I'm trying to kind of bury my
whatever you think they'll be
them.
Like 10, 20 spots below that, but still really good.
Yeah, hopefully that's still 30, 40 spots above where people project them. Right.
I'm hoping people think they're going to stink now, but yeah, if they're healthy though, like that could be a really good team actually.
We have a whole Pac-12 podcast eventually coming up, but
yeah,
can we talk Arkansas?
Never healthy. What's the deal?
Yeah,
I don't know. Arkansas
I thought was the most polarizing team. Like you could argue they were a winner, you could argue they were a loser with the so they get Devo Davis back and then they lose Jordan Walsh. Kind of not a Devo Davis fan. He's a good defensive player. Both are in that regard.
I'm not a Devo Davis fan.
Okay. They get El Ellis, they get Khalif Battle, they get Tremont Mark, they get Kenyon Meniffield, who I feel like is the best player that literally no one's heard of because he played for what was probably the least covered team last year was Washington. Like no one even thought about Washington as a serious team, but like they weren't that bad. It's pretty good.
Games were on at 11 p.m. Eastern on Pac-12 network. Like you couldn't watch it if you wanted to.
I don't know. I went back and forth on this, Jim. I think they're a net loser. And as I'm looking at my Arkansas future ticket for what did I put on it? I'm not excited about it. I had it like kind of my
Arkansas future,
most proud future tickets because I think the way they play is usually translatable in the postseason.
They're a better postseason team. Yep.
But I needed at least Walsh to come back and another portal piece. Holland going to G League was a huge blow. We all loved him, I think. So net loser, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what to think about Arkansas. I think a lot hinges on Mr. Brazil's ACL recovery. If he is full go and back to what he was and gives them at least 4 months of being a true contributing piece, then that's huge. But you never know with those knees. Sometimes it's Quinterly who's back literally in November after a March tear, and sometimes it's Javonte Perkins who never looks the same again. So that's kind of the big swing for me, Matt, is I got to wait and see exactly how Brazil's looking for Arkansas.
How do you like Tremont Mark? You're a big Mark guy, aren't you?
I do, but I keep laughing at Ellis, Battle, Davis. You kidding me? That's the backcourt. They're going to be fighting over the ball. Davis is going to get pissed and get technicals, and Battle and Ellis are going to see who can shoot the most. Neither one a proven winner.
Davis is better than you think. Davis is not as bad as you think, Kai. I don't think
Davis is a head case. I don't like him because
he's a little bit of a loose cannon.
I think he can take his team out of it by doing stuff like that he tends to do on the floor.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that team shoots. It's going to be another problem. Is kind of the issue this year. Like everybody zoned them and just kind of invited them to take threes. Maybe they'll be a little better from deep, at least the more willing shooters. But man, the efficiency could be a bit of a problem from the perimeter too. All right, I think that wraps up the deadline discussion, which means it's time to do our top fives. We teased it a little bit earlier in the show. We typically don't come out with our own rankings. We don't have like the way too early top 25s. We've kind of, because we make zero money from clicks, don't have to live under that specter. But let's give the people a quick preview, Kai, as we've got our top 40 countdown will come in a couple months on Twitter. But where do you stand on top 5 right now? We have a general idea of who the characters are, but I'm curious about your order.
Today will change.
June
number
1st,
1.
Yes.
Purdue, number 1.
What?
7th KenPom last year. Oftentimes best team in the country last year. It's not crazy.
No, it's not. You're right. I just don't.
1 seed last year, and you bring everyone back except Newman and Jenkins. Lance Jones is better than certainly Jenkins. Argument on Newman, but
Teams not better than Duke. They're not better than Duke. We'll get to it.
Freshman to sophomore leap for Braden Smith and Foster Lawyer against the front runner for player of the year, Edey, plus that front court still intact with Gillis first, Kaufman, Wren. Team's awesome.
Yeah, to me, it's kind of like, what was the biggest weakness Purdue had last year? It's like, oh, you can press them and they'll turn the ball over. It's like, well, their two freshman guards aren't freshmen anymore.
And now they're sophomores.
Yeah, they add another guy. Like Jones is more of a ball handler
yes.
than Jenkins or Newman was. So I think they've kind of, as long as the development comes along, taken away that weakness. And you just, man, like everything you do has to be, how do you stop Edey or do you let him get 40?
Yeah. Yeah, Matt Dukes too. It's an embarrassing amount of talent. Matt Painter is a much better coach than John Shire. You can't really argue that point. If Shire fails to get this team in the top 5, it is a failure on his part because the talent is ridiculous on this squad. So Duke's 2 for me. Kansas is 3. Same argument. Good talent. Also fantastic coach. Houston is still 4 for me. I believe in Kelvin Sampson. He will continue to be great. And then 5, I couldn't decide. I'm between Michigan State and drumroll Tennessee for number 5.
Okay.
You can give it to Michigan State for now, but boy, Tennessee is right there for me.
I'm not going to have a whole ton of originality here, but one of mine will at least be different. Matt, I'll let you go second.
No, I think Tennessee is probably just like Purdue. People are still bothered by the postseason thing. And it's like, okay, put it behind you. Look at the roster. How good were they last year? For most of the year, they're really good. So Duke is 1. I think that's I feel very strongly about that. I don't think you can talk me off that ledge. I have Kansas 2. I have Houston 3. I have Purdue 4. And I have FAU 5 with an asterisk conceding I've probably been a little biased there in that the right answer might be Michigan State, but I do have FAU currently 5th.
Man, I thought it was going to be the creative one with Houston 5th because like, I don't think they're in Rothstein's top 10. I thought that would be kind of like off the radar, but we are all Samson boys. We are all Samson believers for sure.
Not in top 10.
Yeah, I was shocked by that. I mean, maybe there's a little more turnover than you typically want from them, but like they lost 4 starters last year and were monsters. And maybe the transition to Big 12 scares people. They won't be able to dominate inferior competition as much, but man, they're just good. They're just so well coached. Breaking news real quick. Former Temple and Iowa State player Jeremiah Williams headed to Illinois.
Wow.
Does that addition of another long ball handler, although he can't really shoot, does that change your outlook of the Illini, Matthias?
Upside, no, but I think in higher, the theme of depth continues to bear out there. Like, I just think that Underwood's doing the right thing. There will be some unhappy characters. So you could argue that this could go the same way as last year. It's like too many mouths to feed. There's some locker room stuff, but seems like there's maybe only one bad apple last season that maybe everyone's kind of bought it on the team first, play a lot of guys type of sales pitch. Yeah, it's a net positive.
Yep. All right. Top 5. Mine. I'll put that in here. Duke, number 1. I'm joining Matt there. I just think blend of freshman talent, maturing sophomores, a senior guard. I'm a fan. I did see Jeremy Roach is in a boot, Matthew, so hopefully he gets healthy. I
saw that too.
Plenty of time for him to get healthy. Purdue, number 2. Join Kai there. I think that team is just monstrously high floor, and there's no way they're not top 6 or 7-ish, so I'll put them 2. Kansas 3. Michigan State, I went 4. I do have them ahead of Houston at 5. And the one team that I'm going to mention here, we discussed them a little bit in this pod. Matt asked if they were better or worse than last year. I put Creighton 6. I don't know. I'm kind of like, maybe I'm
close.
swinging so hard from being like viewed as the Creighton villain last year. I want to be like the cheerleader this year, but I like the roster. I like them and them and Marquette. I had both like 6, 7, 8 with Tennessee.
I think Marquette's better than Creighton. I think that's a flag. I'm going to
board bet right now. Board bet right now.
I mean, I'm
going to pull your UConn last year's perfect storm card with Marquette.
What is your problem with Marquette? I don't understand.
I think they're really good. I don't think they're a top 5, top 10 team.
They finished 10th in KenPom last year and they lost a good player. Creighton finished 12th.
They're like the only team to beat UConn in the last 2 to 3 weeks of the season.
I thought Creighton was better last season than Marquette with both teams fully intact in the form that we saw late in the season. I think Creighton is net a little bit better this season and Marquette's net a little bit worse. That's my calculus to arrive at that.
Marquette swept Creighton last year. Swept them.
I know
Sure
once
did.
with the injuries, Creighton was better late.
2 seed, 6 seed. Yeah, whatever.
We'll see. Yeah, if you guys are board betting that, I'm firmly sitting on the fence.
I'm not board betting
like
it. I'm
both
going to
of them.
have them basically the same.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Creighton
But
was Creighton better.
if you want to put like who finishes higher in the Big East, sure, I'll go.
Yeah,
Marquette.
we'll come around in
Why
the preseason Big East pod. That's when we'll lock in these board bets. See if we can pull something together there. All right, that's it. Anything else, boys? Do you want to get out there into the ether before we sign off for the week?
I got to pack.
No. Yeah, Matt's got to go to the airport. Got to pack. Head to the
enjoy.
Hamptons. Enjoy that, Matthias, Kai. I'll probably hang with you this weekend, right? Yeah, sounds great.
Most likely, yes.
All right,
Yes.
folks. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you to the chat. A lot of good, lively chatter in there. Thoroughly enjoyed it. That's it for this week. We'll see you next week with a Pac-12 recap and review. Cheers.